Ways and Means Committee together. Please, if you have any questions, address the chair. First thing on our agenda is the IDA. Now, are we going by this sheet, or did you handed us sheets?
I think it's probably more informative to go by mark sheet.
Okay, so we'll go by mark sheets. It'll be more informative.
The request is the same, so we're gonna say seek more.
Okay. You want Mark to start us out? Do you have anything to say? Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Although, most people know you, but.
Yeah, I'm going to introduce them to you. With me today is Lillian Orem. She's our longtime financial manager with the IDA. Very knowledgeable on all of the finances. But we'll start out. It's really, you've seen this before, not a whole lot different than what we've presented over the last 12 years in my tenure, and even before that, I think. The two items that pertain directly to the county are our request for assistance from the county. That number's been the same for my tenure, the $65,000. The scramble number is the this year 100,000. So we have 65 asked from the county. The red number is really kind of the unknown. That's it each year. Last year was much lower. That was because of the carryover from the windmill revenues. This year it's back around where it normally is. This year we're having a good year. Those are kind of project fee numbers basically. So when we do projects like we've done this year with Steve Toyota, with Tractor Supply, those types of secure development Tractor Supply. We've done one with up in Old Forge. We've done some refinancing. Those are project fees, and that constitutes that unknown number. The $35,000 Empire Zone fee, that's been the same for a couple years now. That's kind of fluctuated a little bit. It was higher at one point, but with the change in the state's philosophy on the Empire Zone, and essentially the demise of the Empire Zone, that number's been lowered, and we kept it at 35. That number seems to work. We still have a fairly significant amount of businesses that are still receiving Empire Zone benefits, and actually there's quite a bit of activity periodically throughout the year on that from our Empire Zone coordinator. Going down, I don't know if anything jumps out at you, but our annual fee for project administration, $100,000. We receive monies we have a revolving loan fund that we make loans out of each year, depending on the need from companies. When we do that we have about, I'd say about $1.2 million in capitalized amounts right now, which is a nice number. We have monies for companies. As the economy is picking up, we think the activity will pick up. But as a county, you should feel comfortable that we have a pretty ample resource to help piggyback with other economic development entities as well as banks to help allow them to get a lower interest rate. We loan money at 3%, banks loan it say at 6%, they get a blended rate of 4.5%, works out kind of nice. We're not banks, we have a stipulation they don't have, and that's job creation. We receive a small amount of money from Park Outdoor. They have a sign on our Frankfurt property. We receive $400 a year. The blue number is and always has been, that represents an in and out number. But again, that's a fairly substantial amount. You have one of the handouts, Dennis's favorite, our chart showing that activity. And again, that's a good distribution. You have to remember, there's probably at least that amount that's not in the pilot. It may have been at one time. So now there's all that money that came in through IDA projects that's not subject to pilot, it's on the full tax roll. So that's an important number, I think, for both the county and for jurisdictions. We've doing projects allows us to maintain a blue number there, continuing to do projects. So we have total income, including the pilots, about 1.6, excluding the pilots, 400,000. And the expenses, we do have a 2% salary increase in there. That essentially allows for the increase. The benefits, much of that is, the increase is, I think, about a 10% little health insurance anticipated increase. Very common and what you guys see more often than we do. So we have a new line item this year for our summer intern. We've done that the last 3 or 4 years. We haven't budgeted for it. We have budgeted this year.
What's the purpose of that?
That's through your summer intern program, college core program.
I know, but what's the purpose?
I put it in there.
I mean, what are you gonna do with this person? That's what I'm asking.
What do you mean? They work there 8 weeks in the summer.
What are they gonna do in your office for 8 weeks in the summer?
They've done it. We've had them the last 3 or 4 years. They're office
just have
assistants, basically. Yeah,
Office assistant?
yeah, they're office assistants, and actually, it's a very real learning experience for them. And the ones that we've had, for the most part, have been quite successful and gone on to better opportunities, and have actually used the IDA for references for that purpose. They've been real life experiences. So, as a county, I think you should be. I would be proud of that program because I think there's some real value in it, at least from my standpoint on what I see day to day. Insurances down a little bit. Legal fees, pretty much what they've been. We're audited every year. We're required to have an independent audit, which we've done forever. That audit is always available. Other expenses, that is listed. That's pretty much our, this has been adopted by the IDA. I don't know what the pleasure of the county would be.
Do you have anything, Jim?
No, I think, our relationship, Pat, has always been very good with the IDA. We've seen a lot of progress this year with projects. I think the extra work that the IDA assumed, and sorry for that, guys, through the MVRADC process, without the IDA there, I'm not sure, and Jimmy could speak a little better than I could, I'm not sure if a lot of that stuff would have got done. That still, I think, is a crazy process. I think the intent is very good from the governor's office, but I think it's a crazy process, and I think without Mark's help and his staff's help, I'm not convinced that we would have got our 4 projects to the forefront.
Thanks, Jim. We spent an awful lot of staff time on that process. For better or worse, that's the way it is now. It's all streamlined through there. There's different, I have opinions on the entire process. Some I think are good, some are not so good. But for better or worse, that's where it is. I did chair the liaison committee with the members here as members, and I think we presented some high quality priority projects that we're hopeful will be funded. And really, I mean, we're busy. We're very busy. I mean, we've had, I don't know, 4 or 5 projects this year under our project definition, and we got 3 more months. And I think we have a meeting in 2 weeks. I think we're going to be presenting probably at least two more at that point. So I think people are coming back to the IDA. We lost a lot of activity when we used to do industrial revenue bonds, a lot of that. Now with the interest rates that the federal government puts out, there's not that much of a difference between the rates they can borrow money through bonding versus borrow money through with that federal deduction that they get. So we don't see a whole lot anymore. That's why you're seeing a lot. You'll see more often some commercial type of activity through the IDA. There's different exemptions that they need to fit in order to qualify, but we're very careful with that. And our job is to help the economy, and to help the county of Herkimer as taxpayers. So when those projects can do that, and when they're eligible to do that, we're enthusiastic about supporting them.
about questions from the committee? Any questions from the committee? Alan?
Mr. Fee mentioned the insurance costs and building a 10% increase. I would assume that's on health insurance. Are they in our plan, or they have a different plan? Separate. I don't know if you could talk to me. You might have to talk to him and him tell me. I'm not sure. How do you want it to work?
We're not under the county's plan. Being the IDA, we're not part of it, we're not county employees. We have our own insurance.
Are they
we have our own
eligible to be
payroll.
under our plan? I just wondered if there's any cost savings because of something else.
Are you eligible to be under?
I think we looked into it.
I think we looked into it, I know we did.
Several years ago.
It was, you weren't eligible, or it was more expensive?
Couldn't do it.
We can do retirement, but we can't do that.
Well, that's the state is.
Yeah, we're in the state retirement, it has nothing to do with the health
So
insurance.
we're not allowed to do that, okay, that was good. The question, and when we talk about revenue and things like that and pilots, I'm wondering if there's anything built into 2013 about the arrangements the county is having with the proposed purchaser of Country Manor, if there's been any conversations or any reflection in here, do you anticipate any?
We've received zero from that thus far, so it's, at this point, it's speculation.
Well, I'm not talking about money, I'm talking has the conversation begun about the pilots for that? Because we approved an agreement, the legislature approved an agreement, although there was a lot of comment about the 20-year. I'm wondering if that's been brought to you and how
Have
it
you had
might
discussion?
impact the,
Yep.
how it might impact the,
Just what I've mentioned at meetings, that
That's correct.
it may be placed on the table in the near future, and we'll wait.
so it's not considered at this point, okay. The monies that the county appropriated, I don't know, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago, the $250,000, those are the $125,000 for marketing, and if I got the numbers right, Bernie, maybe, Mr. Chairman, Bernie can refresh me, the 150 for marketing, 150 for maintaining the parks. 100, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
We've rolled that several times. Has that money been exhausted? Is it
No,
reflected in
we'll
here?
probably have about 45,000 looking loan again,
In marketing.
and marketing.
So that's not reflected in this at
Just
all?
so we know, maintenance has been spent, and marketing's around.
So out of the,
You
how
got
much
about
was left? How much was?
45,000 left in market?
Probably by the end of the year, I'm estimating.
A little lower than that. We're
Down
in
to
that
about-
neighborhood, yeah.
Out of, which, I can't remember which was marketing versus which was maintenance.
Marketing was 150.
And out of the 150, we have about 40, we will have about 40?
Probably about 45,000.
How much did we come into this year with?
I want to say around 80, 70.
What we rolled over was probably about 80.
And how is that going in terms of marketing? Are you close, having a problem doing it? Is the money adequate?
I think it's adequate. I think we've certainly been able to pick up our efforts with that. We're doing things where we're never able to do due to cost constraints, including attending some nationwide trade shows. We've been to Orlando, we've been to Chicago, we've been to Dallas. We're gonna be going to Las Vegas. We partnered with a group out of Syracuse for some activity in Germany. We picked up on extending our mailings. We've had numerous mailings that we've done. We revised our websites and we've increased our advertising that way. So it certainly allowed us to get ourselves out there in a more broader fashion.
Can you attribute any successes in return for that investment?
I don't think directly, but indirectly, who knows? I think it's a lot of it's a factor of the economy. We have, at the time, we didn't have our asset completely built in Frankfurt, it is now. And again, we, like all taxpayers, we have a lot invested in the Frankfurt Business Park, and we hope with those marketing efforts, they will contribute to success in that park.
So if we look down through the funds and things that might be coming into 2013, is that factoring in some successes in Frankfurt?
Well, it's factoring in successes countywide. I don't think that we could specify whether it be Frankfurt or Newport or anywhere else.
As you do this, I'm just curious of the process, as we, Mr. Chairman, sorry, as the IDA forecasts this, are there specific projects that you're forecasting success on, or is this
We do
just
not.
based
I
on
mean-
past success?
No, we couldn't, if we were able to do that, we were in the wrong business. We can't, we don't know which projects are gonna come to fruition.
So there's no revenue assumed in there for future projects?
There's revenue assumed, it's $144,000, but we can't specify where it's gonna come from, and never have been able to.
When we look at the operating budget for 2012 and contrast it to the proposed budget for 2013, what we're not seeing, and this was kind of an issue when we were doing the other budgets with the forms that Bernie had, was to understand how the 2012 operating budget contrasts to the actual revenue with expenses to date. Are these, have we met, do we fully anticipate meeting these operating budgets in 2012, the final operating budgets?
Yep, to the most extent. I mean, there's some overage and underage, as there isn't any budget.
I mean, in
That's why the
2012
budget's-
now, I'm talking
Yeah,
about
and
2012,
I'm
this
talking
many
2012
months.
also. I mean, again, when we put it together last year at this time, we put a budget together.
Mhm.
And sometimes some categories go over, some go under. I mean, that's.
No, I appreciate that,
and
I'm just,
That's really the best we can do with it.
on the revenue side,
Mhm.
where are we right on target with the budget? Do we expect shortfall any place in this budget? Or do we expect excess any place in the revenue side?
On the revenue side, in the 48,000, we're gonna probably exceed that.
Anything
And
else?
that's, no, I don't know that we'll exceed it anywhere else.
Will you-
I
will you
mean,
have
everything
less
else is pretty
anywhere
fixed. Everything else is pretty fixed. Again, the red column is gonna always be the question mark.
And just one other thing, Mr. Chairman, and I think it's a very good point, and the graph is informative in terms of the pilots. Mr. Fee mentioned the successes that have probably come from this. Do you keep that any place in the chart form that we can see how that return was? Because I think that is important for our municipalities and citizens to recognize what's been.
What do you mean chart form? No,
Well,
let's see.
as I look at this was the pilots, and
Yeah.
now, as you said, because of these pilots, certain businesses have taken off
Right.
in our community.
Yeah,
Do
no, we
have-
don't at this point, we don't have a revenue gauged from those who have come to the duration.
What we have is a narrative, but we don't have any
Correct.
stats.
That's correct.
That would be helpful, so, thank you.
All righty, thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, just when will we talk about the rollover? Do we have to roll it over, that extra money from the advertising, from the marketing?
Vern?
The purchase order, yes, if it's not spent by the end of this year, it would, it has to be carried over, although I don't think it needs another resolution. I think we did that because we had to reappropriate it because the purchase order ran out. But I think the purchase order can be extended
So
another year.
we're allowed to just keep doing it? I mean, we did this one in
No, there's a
09.
limit. We can only do a purchase order for 2 years. But we did, I think this is the first year of 2 years, and we just rolled it over. I'm not 100% sure of that, but
I just.
if the purchase order runs out, then the legislature would have to reappropriate what's
We
left.
appropriated out of 09 revenue, didn't we?
Yes.
So we appropriated it, and that must have been
And
setting
this
up.
might be the second year, so if it's not spent by the end of the year, we may have to reappropriate. I'd have to take a look.
And is it the same money that you reappropriate, or is it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Hope that works out there.
Yeah, I sent out this one, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Any portion of the agenda we can address?
Number 2.
Yeah, we're gonna go to number 2 on the regular agenda.
Yeah, I think we're finally set for this, guys, for me to bring a
Yes.
resolution.
Yeah.
uh,
Be here now.
To move forward. These are, I shared this with you a while ago, there's 6 projects from Town of Frankfurt, Village of Ilion, Village of Frankfurt, Village of Herkimer, and then the 2 big projects, one with the Village of Ilion and one with the Town of Driven Flags / Village of Mohawk. It's all flood relief from Hurricane Irene. We did finally get some answers from ESD. Rob will craft a contract that makes it very clear that this is just pass-through and that all the rules and regulations set forth by the state and the federal government will have to be filed by the village or the town. And if there's a problem with it, it'll be their problem, not our problem. The state wants us to be the keeper of the money, so instead of having 8 or 9 contracts, they have 1 contract. It's another thing, you know, kind of then what you always talk about. It's something they're really pushing onto the county to do. And for us to help the towns and villages, I think it's the right thing to do.
Is this through SEMO, Jim?
This money then is technically through Empire State Development.
Okay.
It started with SEMO, so they must have found a pot of money somewhere and pushed it over to ESD. There's another part of this with NCRS, Vern, is that how you say that, or whatever that group is? So this is just the 25% for most of the projects. The other 75% has to come from that, and I'm hearing there's some problems with that, but we're not involved with that at all.
Mr. Chairman? I just wanna understand this. I think when we had the conversation, when we first spoke about this, and Jim, is the county, by the money that the states, the strings that they're putting on it, we're to be accountable for it.
Right.
And am I understanding you to say that county attorney can write something that's gonna absolve us of that accountability?
Who knows how in court, right? But what we'll be saying to the towns and the villages, and I've shared this with the mayors and the town supervisors, and they're all fine with that.
I'm just worried, what if they don't do it, who's culpable?
What we're gonna say by our contract is you're gonna be culpable, and they're gonna accept that.
But we're gonna be the ones that have to answer it if there's litigation or
Absolutely.
anything
No
else.
question about that. I don't-
So are we gonna have them, is anyone going to peek at it on the county side to see that any of that the municipalities are for sure doing it? I mean, we've had some
I'm
really
trying to
horror
work-
stories in our
Yeah,
municipalities.
I'm trying to work with Jay and Bob Vanderwalker, who deal with this kind of flood mitigation stuff all the time in their own departments, to make sure that we follow exactly what they have to follow.
If we-
And that's why I was being very cautious, trying to get something from Empire State Development to say what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, and what kind of documentation do you need.
But are you
Well,
getting,
We
obviously,
finally got that the other day.
obviously they
And
have,
I've been holding on this guys for what, 3 months, 2 months, whatever.
they obviously have forms they have to fill out.
Absolutely.
but do they come to us and we submit them, or do they?
Absolutely, no, they will come to us.
So will we be having someone looking them over, is my
Yes,
question?
absolutely.
So
And I'll probably be working with Jay, probably not Jay, maybe Mark Nagel or Bob.
is there
Vanderwalker.
any piece of the contract that you get for the administrative
Nothing.
oversight? You're barred from it?
No, because they've already made their application and they're using all their money.
You mean they budgeted all of the money?
Yes.
Are we
But,
barred?
well, I'll just give you one project, Town of Frankfurt, Moyer Creek, the total project is 34,000, the part of this grant is 8,700. So there's not a lot of money for those guys to,
But just for so will the resolution that Rob is going to be doing stipulate what we're doing as a county to try to protect ourselves?
yes,
I mean, not by saying that villages and towns have gotta do it, but that we're gonna review or do whatever.
right.
'Cause I
That's our
couldn't imagine-
obligation.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine we could absolve ourselves completely, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, wasn't this a $400,000,
There's two big ones, Fred, 500,000 for 250 for Sherman Flats / Mohawk, and 248 for the Village of Ilion. But all the other projects are very minor projects.
yeah, I thought it was a little over 400 grand.
And these things, they just threw these on us. We weren't part of this.
Okay, Karen, how are you?
Good.
I'm sorry, we need a motion for the,
So, I'll second.
okay, we have a motion and a second, is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Now we're gonna look at the UTA workforce budget. Is that community development here, is that what? That's what it's community development?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Bernie.
So, Mr. Wallace,
Again, I think everybody knows here that it's 100% funding. The only part that's not 100% funding, which we'll be addressing in Mr. Peplinski's committee shortly, both about the summer program and the College Corps program. Again, if you want to talk about that today, Pat, that's fine. But our assumption is that we'll be there again. Other than that, it's 100% from the feds through the state. And I think, that office has done a great job with the whip, with trying to grab as much federal money as we can.
in years past, the federal money's been going down, is that still
Yes.
going down? Is that-
Well, this past year, from 2012 to 2013, we did see a very small increase. I think that we were being told that it was gonna be low, but then they renegotiated something and it actually went up by 4%. But they're telling us to expect over the next 3 or 4 years another 8% loss. Especially if this, certain thing passes,
Sequestration.
yeah.
Just so the committee knows and everybody knows that Karen and I did approach the landlords and have asked them for some kind of mitigation, letting them know that if, you know, things keep going the way we are, we just can't stay in the building. And we were very upfront, they were receptive, we're just waiting to hear back from them what their thoughts are.
When is that lease up? You're asking to renegotiate mid-lease?
December 31st, yes.
Boy, it's climbing the wire then, if you have to find other space, isn't it? You have month to month, is that what your plan would be?
They would always be good about that, yeah.
They've always been very good with us.
But I just want people to understand it's a real, and Karen's being crunched, you know, per Pat's comments, as, you know, less and less federal money.
We are getting money though from our partners that come in now, where we weren't before, or aren't we?
We are still getting some money, but anything not covered by a partner, if a partner's there, it's not covered, it's a burden of ETA, and that's more money that has to come out of our budget. And right now, a lot of my budget is going towards staff, benefits, salary, and the building.
You're
That's
down how many staff?
I have 6 staff, which is, you know,
Plus yourself, total seven?
no, 6 total.
6 total.
And we've gone down and down, you know, I had to lay off a few years ago, then I had a retirement, then I laid off a part-time worker. No one's ever been replaced.
Okay,
These are all full-time?
All full-time right now. And they're longtime county employees.
where do you want us to start going through this, or?
Sure.
I mean, it is what it is, but it's still an educational process. So we'll go to page 1.
What I basically did with this budget, as a lot of you know already, that my fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th, so that makes this budget tricky for me. So where it's, my total budget in here is over 900,000, my WIA allocation is like 400,000, but I have to be prepared to be able to get through 2 of my fiscal years with one of your budget years, so. But I did take this budget down about 7%. Many of the places that I took money out, unfortunately, was what I had budgeted for training funds for on-the-job training and classroom training, because of the fact that, like I said, most of my allocation is going for infrastructure right now. So, and at some point, we know that will be looked at on the state level of what is your percentage of training. But we are getting more and more. I think I share with a lot of you every time I get a report on that OJT National Emergency Grant money that we've been able to use for a lot of local employers. And that money comes directly from the state. So where I'm losing in on-the-job training money, we're able to supplement with that money. So, but those are the biggest changes that you would see in my budget, is just fixing some of the benefits that I, you know, last year, looking at what we did spend and trying to adjust those. I went on Bernie's recommendations. Health insurance stayed about the same, but retirement is killing everybody, so.
Are you gonna go page by page, Mr. Chairman?
Where did you get?
It's your
Well, let's go down page by page and then.
okay.
So use money, ETA administration, revenues, you're expecting 72,923 based on our fiscal year,
Right.
not yours.
Mr. Chairman, just on that then, if you look at 2011, I don't understand the differences, and I appreciate what Karen's saying in terms of the change in the differences in our fiscal year. It says 2011, you took in 54,755 in that category. And that was the actual for 2011. But is that
Well,
really not true? It's because of the change.
54,892 as long as we.
I see 54,755. Oh, I'm not talking about the use money, I was into the ETA administration.
Why are you seeing an increase there, I guess is the question.
I thought I answered.
I think, again, it has to do with the fact that the 2 fiscal years are not the same, and so it's kind of a juggling act. I know that I can only spend on anything what I have in my allocation.
So in 2011, within our budget scheme at the county, you might have gotten that in, although you were owed more money that might have not come in during our year, but came in during your year.
Exactly.
Let me just make sure that's not stolen. Supposed to be a fire truck.
So when we look at any of the actuals for this, they're actuals, I guess Bernie, maybe you can tell us, is that the actuals for what's hit our budget?
That's
or-
the actuals for our fiscal year. So if you look at the net at the end, at the total end of her budget,
Mhm.
it'll show that last year, it looks like her program cost us money, but it doesn't. There is a small fund balance, and I meant to look up how much it was, but there is a small fund balance in that account that carries it over because there's timing issues, especially with hers because of the different fiscal year. So some years it looks like it costs, some years it looks like they make money, but overall it stays the same, and none of that hits the general fund, it's all stays within.
And the fact that it's 100% funded, really,
Yeah.
this is irrelevant, other than Karen, and Karen does a great job of sending out information, I appreciate it.
You know what I think we should do then? I see you have your own sheet there,
Mhm.
and maybe highlight those things that you wanna highlight and tell us. Because if we look at this is just gonna confuse us that much.
Yeah. Well, basically, you know, and I have each one of them down here and what the changes were for each. You know, I have basically administration, adult money, youth money, and dislocated worker money. And then we have a one-stop account which has a revenue side to it where I take in rent money from everybody and then what ETA gives to that. But basically, the biggest changes I made is what I've already said.
Kurt, you're safe.
Retirement was a huge one, and I did cut down a lot of our training money because that I really just don't have. And the money you see us spending in that NEG program doesn't hit our budget. That money is dispersed by the WIB. Herkimer County gets a good portion of it, which I've given you many reports on that, but that OJT, NEG, National Emergency Grant, doesn't come through Herkimer County. It's handled by the WIB. So basically, that accounts for a lot of the changes that I've made here.
Jim, I think this was gonna be confusing because.
Oh, I agree.
Because our fiscal year versus hers, so then I just asked her to highlight what she sees happening within the program.
Karen, any thoughts on summer next year, or?
I think that we'll get summer money again like we did this year. This past year, they released it very early, and
Right.
as you know, they released it to Tim, actually.
No, absolutely. It's
Department
TANF
section,
money.
yeah.
I was gonna say,
That he
that's
is.
TANF,
That's
yes.
TANF money that Tim allows the WIB to do. So we had a very successful summer year.
And that's money that's allocated to people that meet certain criteria.
Right.
Students, kids.
A lot of kids don't always, and a lot of parents don't always understand because they get the legislative program mixed up with our program. But we do a good job of explaining that, you know, it's specifically this year, mostly the whole program was kids that were either on public assistance, food stamps, Medicaid, SSI, foster care.
And what kind of jobs do they take?
They had jobs in all the local municipalities, schools, libraries, where they might be doing maintenance stuff, they might be doing secretarial type things, playground work. It was very uneventful, good summer. We had a lot of kids work, no problems that kids had to be let go, and, you know, they really wanted to work.
This is what I'd be interested in, not knowing names, but I'd like to know, just curious as to what places they went to.
What do you?
Actual businesses.
Well, it's mostly public, you know, the
Is it,
schools, highway departments.
does it have to be that way?
No, because we did have some newer ones this year that, whoever wants a summer kid, we can get. We had a church this year.
Do you subsidize that though? They're
It's
paid for you?
100%,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
It's basically, those jobs are basically the same as what they'll get through our.
Yes, they are. A
legislative
lot of times the
program,
kids are working
schools.
together.
Yes.
We can't put kids in churches.
We can, profit and nonprofit.
You can do profit too and pay them to go to work for profit?
Mhm.
And what kind of a salary do they get?
They get paid 7 1/4, which is another, I have.
Wow.
That's mandatory.
We looked
We
into it
tried-
a
we
couple
tried
of
like
years
crazy.
ago, but I
Yeah.
have
I think it
to.
was 3 years ago.
And you know, you think we'd
So
get a lot
they get
more
paid minimum
questions,
wage.
minimum wage.
Ain't that guys?
Tanner still our money?
What's
And it's
that?
still, it should go to the same guidelines.
Yeah,
I think this program is washed between Karen and our youth bureau to fit the kids. Sometimes kids will come in under our program and they'll identify them as being eligible for this, and then they automatically transfer
And
them.
There's a lot of back and forth with Gina and Kathy.
And I think
in our office.
it's a credit to these two agencies working together.
And also Karen will, they'll be making a transfer for a small amount of money to help with the bus.
Oh, yes,
So
we
so
allocated money
Gina,
out of that.
Gina, Karen, and Tim work on that.
We worked on that to identify what kids rode the bus were TANF eligible, so that I could give.
So we get a few
them that.
thousand down.
Yeah.
Actually,
It helps
it's a
out.
good opportunity to put more kids to work. Say if they're applying through our program and you realize that they can benefit through TANF, you place them there, now you have actually another one.
well,
coming out here.
that was one of the reasons why I wanted to see where people were working. John's got.
Mr. Karen, are there many young people going into like the law end of it, like courts and working in the police departments, or do you have many doing that?
We didn't have too many placed. A lot of times, those places don't want kids of that age just because of the nature of what may go on there. We've had college core kids placed at places like that, but not so much the 14, 15, 16-year-olds.
Yeah,
Are you subject to minimum wage for those jobs, the Kansas jobs?
The what jobs?
Minimum wage?
I have to pay minimum.
You have to.
Yeah.
We don't with our youth program though, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And
Does that
really
create
don't get
some-
we don't, well, that's what she was
Kids looking
saying.
at the same paycheck
once in a
wondering
while,
why?
but not as much as you'd think.
Because they're at the same sites.
Yeah.
The first year.
sometimes, doing the same work and wondering why
Since then.
one gets paid one wage and one gets paid another.
Well, we've discussed that, and, the legislature decided that at the time it was better to put more to work.
I know.
What it does do, though, it does target the children that are receiving benefits. If I know you're getting it at 7.25, I know your family's a benefit recipient. That is one of the things that happens, I would imagine.
Well, I mean, that's.
If they know
How
enough
would they
about
know?
it. They
I
don't really
think
know enough
They know
about
that
it.
much about it.
No.
They don't check, so. Mr. Chairman, Karen, on the square footage over there at your place, the fact that that your staff has gone down,